Hi, everyone. Thank you all for the patience. We're finalizing some logistical aspects of the panel. So, should we wait until we have the identifications, or should we start with the introductions? Well, thanks everyone once again for joining us in this very, very interesting, important panel as well. We're going to be discussing a little more about the integrity of voluntary carbon markets, since it's a hot topic lately, right? So we have some important participants of the market. So basically, we're joining us in the panel today. We have Alex Sayer from Carbono, CEO of Carbono, Mary Densmore, Director of Industrial Programs at ACR, Andrew Howard, the Senior Director in Climate Policy and Strategy at Vera, and Kishore Rajansa, Chief Operations Office, Global Carbon Council, right? So thanks once again. The panel will focus not only on the integrity of a voluntary carbon market, but all that standards have been doing to improve integrity, and what has been done individually by each one of them, not only to ensure integrity of the markets, and also ensure that we are not going to impact the pace of climate action by implementing too many layers of additional processes. Be sure that at the same time that we increase integrity, we guarantee that we can pick up on the pace of the climate action, right? So a little bit about our panelists, starting maybe with Kishore. Kishore is a climate change, energy, and sustainability leader with over 28 years experience in leadership in multinational advisory, multilateral regulatory, and government organizations. Currently, he's working as Chief Operations Officer at GCC, Global Carbon Council, in Qatar, primarily responsible for conceptualizing, designing, and operationalizing the GCC at Corsia and Kroll-approved GHG program. Next to him, Andrew Howard, Senior Director of Climate Policy and Strategy at Vera. He leads basically Vera's strategic engagement to develop opportunities for carbon-related standards and build greater ambition in climate action. Andrew has been developing climate policy and carbon markets for over 20 years. As an independent consultant before joining Vera, he worked on several projects with a range of government clients, international institutions, and business groups. Next to him, Mary Densmore, Director of Industrial Programs at ACR, responsible for overseeing the investigation, analysis, and implementation of new strategic opportunities to harness the power of markets for high-impact emissions reduction and removal actions. Prior to joining ACR, Mary spent almost 20 years in environmental and oil and gas sectors and was responsible for developing technical and policy solutions to key industry issues. And Alex Sayer, last but not least, CEO of Carbono. Alex is an industrial engineer and political scientist, a Fulbright scholar with Master in Sustainable Development at University of Maryland. Also, long-time experience of over 20 years as a consultant on sustainability projects in the private sector, and nearly 4 years of experience in public sector as Director of Climate Change and Risk Management at the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development of Colombia. As Carbono CEO, he's responsible for strengthening and positioning the standard globally. So thanks everyone for joining us. And as we move to the panel, basically we're going to have 2 different rounds. One, I'm going to ask you all the same 2 questions to get your different perspectives on the same issues. And then the second round of questions get you specific aspects of the operations associated with the integrity, initiatives associated to integrity in each one of your standards. So first, as we were discussing, the discussion on environmental integrity is not something new. It comes from the CDM times, right? So it has been significantly emphasized in the last few years, and most recently, some recent developments that question the integrity of carbon markets become a more and more important issue. So, first of all, first question, how environmental integrity is understood within your standards and the specific actions that are being taken to achieve it? And second, what is being done to ensure that processes that will be streamlined to avoid increased integrity won't impact our ability to increase the pace of climate action? So 2 things, what actions are being taken and how you guys ensure that those additional layers of processes won't impact the the pace of a climate action. So maybe we could start with Andrew.
Sure. Thanks a lot, and it's good to be here. Hi, everybody. I think this is an age-old question for crediting programs. As you mentioned, it started with the CDM, and it's really been a topic of debate since then. So the discussions around integrity, although they're really reaching quite a peak at the moment, they have been around for a very long time. And I think the bread and butter of a crediting program like ours, the VCS program, is ready to be in a process of continuous improvement. We're constantly bringing out updates to the standard itself. Our latest came out in August this year. We're constantly bringing out new versions of methodologies. So there's been a lot of attention at this conference on the new RED methodology, which has just come out. So I can certainly say a bit more about that if you want. So it's really a process of continuous improvement. You'll find crediting programs often refer to this as a journey that we're on. It's not like we actually reach a point where we suddenly kick up our heels and think, okay, we've achieved integrity now and we can relax and sit back. It's very much a process of constant vigilance, always looking out for where there may be issues in the remaining standards and in the methodologies. It's constantly looking at new science, new technological developments, and making sure that we're keeping up with that. I think you've seen it this year for us, in particular with the RED methodology, which is the result of several years of work. Earlier this year, we brought out a new methodology in the agricultural space, VM42, so that's also been quite a radical change in the way that soil carbon is directly measured instead of using modeling approaches. So you have quite major changes like this, and they come up all the time. Beyond the supply of credits and the quality of that supply, we also are beginning to place a lot more attention on the way that credits are used. I think traditionally this has not been a particular area for crediting programs like ourselves to think about, but I think with any kind of product that any manufacturer is making, if I can put it that way, there's also a concern about the way a particular product, or in our case a credit, is being used. So what we see with the developments around the VCMI framework, for example, I think they're really exciting. I think they offer opportunities to underpin the use of credits in the way that fits into companies' net zero strategies and things like this. And this is really crucial. And I think in terms of the overall credibility of the market and the overall credibility of the credits that we're producing, these aspects are also very important. So we've been very much working this year along with not only VCMI but also ICVCM. We see both of these initiatives as really enhancing this journey that we're on towards integrity of the credits and the credit use. I think in terms of your initial question as to what defines credit quality, I think what's laid out in the ICVCM core carbon principles is a very good summary of what integrity means. We've always known these things. It's not new rocket science. Things like being additional, being permanent, being third-party independently verified. These are all key components of integrity, and they are core components today, and they have always been core components. But I think what ICVCM has been doing is really important work in mapping out a common basis of what that integrity means. And we see it very much as an enhancement of the work and the journey that we've been on since we began. So that's why we've gotten very much behind ICVCM to support that. We put in our application just prior to this COP, so that we will be going through the assessment process. It's unclear as to when exactly the first CCP labels will be issued, but we are expecting and hoping to receive them as early as possible next year. So these are all aspects of integrity. I think we, as an industry, have been quite spooked, if I can put it that way, by a lot of the criticism, a lot of the media attention that there's been. I think it's important in that context, first of all, to know that there are two sides to every story, and I think we, as Vera, we've had a lot of issues with the way that a lot of those articles have come out and the kinds of analysis which has been lying behind them. At the same time, it's also important that those criticisms have been focused on quite a narrow field of project types. It's not universal across the whole voluntary carbon market, or it's not universal across VCS project types. So I think that's very important to bear in mind. And I look forward to the time when we look across emitters, companies, and we see that there's a significant decarbonization of their own emissions. And for me, that is going to be the turning point in this criticism that we're getting at the moment. Because I think a lot of the criticism is really rallied behind the fact that we need to move faster on climate change. We need companies to not only be using credits, but also to be decarbonizing. And it's very fortunate that we're seeing now new analysis coming out, which is actually emphasizing that the companies who are active in using credits are actually also the ones who are active in decarbonizing. And that kind of holistic way for companies to deal with their emissions by both reducing their own emissions and also using credits from outside. This is really important, and I think once we get that nailed down, and once there's more confidence around that, I think a lot of the criticism will actually die away, because I think that's been the source of a lot of the concerns.
Sounds good, Andrew. Thank you so much. So maybe, Mary, would you like to volunteer to be the next one? And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you to stay within 5 minutes remarks, so we'll be able to manage the time of the panel.
Well, no, because I can cheat and just say,
okay.
I totally agree with so much that was just said. I will not repeat everything that was just said broadly about voluntary carbon markets, because it's true, and we're very much aligned and very supportive of what is going on broadly within the carbon market. So to focus on ACR and what we do, and as disclaimer, I do all of our tech-based. I'm the industrial and engineered team lead, so please don't ask me about trees and what we're doing on that side of the program. But really, at a programmatic level at ACR, we are in a constant state of analyzing and sort of just rehashing, because this market is evolving so much. It's not just that suddenly people are looking, it's that it really is evolving. Technologies are evolving. And so we just updated our overarching governing document, the standard. We're going to be updating our verification and validation standard, because obviously that's a huge key part of what we do, is that third-party arm's length verification. And then we look at the actual methodologies themselves, and in a constant state of, across our nature-based and our tech-based side, what are the areas that we can improve? What are the areas that we can expand to sort of spoiler into the next question of how do we not get too bogged down in with all the integrity concerns? So with landfills, how can we improve maybe around the edges of those projects, of encouraging more work and making sure, again, that we're still staying true to the additionality and the permanence and the lack of double counting. So where can we improve at a methodology level and also at a project level? And certainly the validation is important, but even continuous improvement from one year to the next if it's a project that lasts over a period of years. So those are all the things that we're doing. And in terms of how do we make sure that we're not slowing the process down and that we can get to scale, that's a huge demand on the voluntary market right now. And it's not just, we're all watching you, and you need to make sure that your credits are of high quality, and but we need to scale, not just in terms of volumes of methodologies that you also have, but get out there, get creative, and we need more methodologies. And so how can we do that in a proactive way that still has that high integrity? And that's something that we're really working on at ACR. I don't have a great answer that I can say concrete steps, but it's certainly something. We get ideas all the time. Some of them are very creative for new methodologies. And really, how do we analyze those, and how do we make sure that those new ideas coming in certainly align with our 3 pillars, which are nature-based credits and short-lived climate pollutants, high GWP, and also carbon capture and sequestration, but also just that they have the opportunity to scale and at costs that are reasonable and actually deploy them.
Sounds good. Fair to me. So, Alex, I'll leave you to close the panel, this round. I'll ask Kishore now, if you don't mind. Kishore. Yeah. So, Kishore, if you don't mind, your perspectives on both the integrity and quality, and also on the scale up and timing issues.
Yes, so the integrity, so I would divide this into what is the process that we are following, and then what is the practices that we are doing, right? So to maintain integrity. So typically I divide 4 pillars of integrity for a carbon credit program is the standards, governance, registry, process, robust KYC. These are the 4 or 5 pillars of the integrity. And they are by large are covered into the eligible unit criteria, the EUC, which was from the CORSIA. And the advantage was GCC was that we were exactly coming at around the same time when the CORSIA published its KYC, the EUC criteria, right? So it was very helpful for us to really design the program around the CORSIA as a building block for the program itself, which determined robust governance, registry, and standards. Our governance is advisory board giving strategic direction, steering committee, which is of 10 independent members responsible for project registration and issuances. And also there is a methodological panel, we call it regulatory committee, which is another 11 members sitting across different parts of the world, which are responsible for vetting the methodology and finally approving the methodologies. And on top of it, there are roster of experts, and there are 6-step process which is followed in approving the projects and issuance requests as such, which we do. We are also now with new requirement which we are coming in is our new project portal which will come, which will even be much more secured and much more stringent in terms of our requirements. The KYC process will be more stringent. We are yesterday itself announced we acquired a new registry now called GCR, the Global Carbon Registry. That will be our registry as well. We are, of course, S&P Global is also there as our registry, but we might work on 2 registries in parallel, and we'll give a choice to our project owners where they want to submit their projects to. Then yes, sustainable development is another we have separate standard for evaluating the impact of the project on sustainable development goals and on the community, and we have a separate standard on environment and social safeguard standards. So you need to meet all the criteria to be able to get the GCC credits as such. In future, we would align our methodologies with the 6.4 as the picture becomes clear around 6.4. We would be happy to align our methodologies along that line. And of course, we are making a submission to ICVCM in the first quarter of 2024. So I'll stop here. Of course, and the processes that we follow, it takes about 6 months to 9 months time. We are following. We are considered to be one of the very stringent program because we ask several questions on the request for registration itself or issuance itself. So yeah, it takes about 6 to 9 months time to get a project registered with the GCC.
Thank you so much. So I know you were anxious, Alex. Your time now.
Thank you, Alfredo. So there are many similar things that we in Ser Carbono are working, similar to the other programs. I mostly agree about the continuous improvement that Andrew told, and also about that integrity and quality means that you have to be confident to the other parties and to those whom are buying these credits, and how you make that confidence into this. So we are working with different parts in the whole value chain. So one of those really important parts are the BBBs. BBBs are, for us, one of the like those parts that needs to be improved a lot and needs to work really closely with the standards. So we updated many of our procedures that has to be with the BBBs. One of them is a permanent training program for BBBs. We are identifying when we do the whole certification cycle, where are the critical points that many BBBs are, not feeling or not, doing good in that sense. And we are working towards training on those points specifically. For example, changes requests, how to make changes requests into the training, into the certification in the programs, also into overlaps and possible overlaps So we developed a new tool for identifying overlaps in agreement with eco-registry. So before validating the projects with eco-registry and with this tool, we are identifying possible potential overlaps with projects. And before validating the projects, we are sending some alerts to the projects that they may have different overlaps. And that really strengthens the integrity of the program. Also, we, more than being a reviewer into the certification process, we may work really closely with the BBBs as well. So there are other issues in additional to the BBBs in terms of we are updating our methodologies, we are updating also our processes and our protocol as well, since we were recently endorsed by ICROA and conditionally approved by CORSIA. So that means that we have to update many issues into our protocol as well.
Very good. Thank you so much. So important note, I forgot to introduce myself. Alfredo Nicastro is StoneX. So this is very important, I think, to all of us here, to all market participants, right? Not only the integrity, of course, very important to us, but also it's important that we can actually do our job, which is implement climate action. So that's why the question associated on how the increased integrity, additional layers of reviews and processes will not impact the pace of climate action. So that's very critical, I think. Sure, yes.
No, I forgot to say that yesterday there was a momentous occasion where the COP presidency, under the aegis of COP presidency, 6 standards are signed together for the collaboration on, or going together on collaborative approaches of methodologies and, extending the carbon market for Article 6.2 implementation, and many more pledges have been made by standard bodies, which include GCC, ACR, Vera, Gold Standard, and CAR. So really this is a very important time where the standards are coming together to move forward in a cohesive manner and working towards integrity.
Very good. Yeah. And I think, it would be great to see this whole discussion of integrity in the past, and then we can actually move into implementation. So I think a common theme in your presentations were basically continuous improvement of standards, the way that we implement MRV practices, now with the advent of new technologies, allowing us to do more creative stuff and more reliable information tracking, working through value chain involving other participants of the market. That's all very important. So now maybe to go more specific in each one of your standards and platform, maybe starting with you again, Andrew. I think something that everyone has been following very closely was the developments associated with the RED Plus methodology and the new methodology revised by Vera. So as we understand, it incorporates significant improvements in establishing baselines and also on MRV and using digital practices for improving quality of your MRV tools. So if you could tell us a little bit more in details about these enhancements, what is in the core of the new methodology and what it makes it different than the previous version?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. Just on if I can, just before going into that for a moment, just to focus on digitalization though, just to bring that to the fore a bit more explicitly. So what we're doing, and I think this is common across other standards as well, but what we're doing is we're digitalizing the entire process, end to end. And we're doing this largely in response to the new technology which is available, the new need for registry services, but also the fact that the whole system needs to just move so much faster than it is currently. We're currently very much in a mode of PDFs and assessing these through fairly manual processes. And to your point about how do we make sure that we're combining the increases in in integrity as we move forward, also with the ability to not slow down the market. I think that's really crucial. So in the future, what you can expect is when you're setting up a project, it'll be through a web portal. You'll be putting in elements of data and not submitting, long PDF documents. And then the project entity, which is established at that point, would carry throughout the entirety of the length of the lifetime of a project, which means we can digitalize a lot of the MRB processes and also completely revamp the registry services that we're working on. So I just did want to stress that. In terms of the new RED methodology, so we had an event here yesterday evening, which some of you, or maybe even a lot of you, may have been present at. So I won't go through all the detail of the RED methodology that we brought out, particularly given the time as well. But essentially, it's a methodology, it's the start of a new set of methodologies, really, and modules, whereby there's quite a few quite radical changes in the way that RED is going to work. This is the result of a work program which has been going on for several years. It's been involving a lot of experts to help with the authorship of the methodology and the modules, but also there's been very broad consultation. So I'm sure a lot of you have been involved in that as well. One of the really key changes to it is that in the future, under the new methodology, it will be Vera that takes the lead in setting the baselines. The way we'll be doing that, so that's instead of project developers, project proponents setting the baselines themselves, the way that we'll be doing that is to first of all prepare jurisdictional data sets of deforestation in a country. We'll be able to examine where the risk areas are within the country, within that jurisdiction for deforestation. And when a project comes forward, then what we'll do in order to create the baseline is to take a level of deforestation as the baseline, which is proportionate to the overall jurisdictional deforestation data. And that is very key because what it enables us to do is to ensure that the baseline for the project is consistent with the national or the subnational accounting that is for the jurisdiction of deforestation. And that is very key. It also means that we as a certifier, we're doing the baseline and no longer the project developers. So to the extent there is a perceived or perhaps even real conflict of interest issue there, it means that we reduce any risk there of conflict of interest. We'll be using a lot of new technologies for this, remote sensing primarily, of course, but it'll also be tested through ground monitoring results, just to make sure that the data that we're using at the jurisdictional level and then at the project levels is going to be appropriate. So this is a major shift forward. It's something that we believe will bring a lot of consistency into the RED space at the project level. It's something which is very much along the lines of our working with governments and at a jurisdictional level for how the data is being provided, where governments are already moving themselves to develop their own FRELs, then we'll also be working with those governments in order to pull that information together. So what we can expect is a system which has a lot more quality control within it. And we're really excited about the shift towards the new RED methodology. We believe that, as I was mentioning before, it is very much in line with this idea of being on a journey towards integrity. But I think this will take us a major leap forward in that. So it's something we're pretty excited about. A couple of other aspects around this as well. One is that, and this is a bit unusual in the way that we normally bring out methodologies, we are requiring that existing projects move across to the new registry, to the new methodology. And the timeline that we have in mind there, and there's some variation, and you can look on the website to find the details of this, is really speaking by the end of 2025, we're expecting projects to have come across to the new methodology. And this is quite a different approach to what we've taken in the past. Normally when a new methodology comes out, it's sufficient to change at the point when the crediting period is renewed. But this is something we really believe in. We want this whole area of RED to get past the kinds of issues that it's been facing to date. So we are really pushing more strongly for a more rapid transition to the new methodology. And I think that is the kind of thing which you can probably expect to see more often, because I think there's a lot of truth to the issue that's been raised, that sometimes the market is not moving fast enough. It's all well and good to have the continuous improvement, but we need to get more impetus, more dynamism into it.
If you don't mind me asking, I think it's very important, and the way I see it, that Vera getting more involved, for example, in the baseline setting and improving more quality assurance practices, that's also has an impact. You guys have been overwhelmed with demands from market, and so it probably has an impact on resources. How are you planning to tackle that? How are you planning to bring resources to your team to be able to not only do what you already do, but add those additional tasks to your plate?
Yeah, that's certainly a big challenge. We are awarding contracts to external players in order to prepare the jurisdictional data. So that is the key load is really around developing the jurisdictional data. So that's one way in which we're managing it. There's also a digital risk allocation tool which we're coming out with in the first quarter of next year. So this will be a digital means of doing the work that has been done for years already on distributing and allocating risk. But we're moving to a digitalized approach here. And I think it keys into longer term moves around digitalization. So I definitely hear you that it is something which adds to the plate. One of the fortunate aspects of this is the number of red projects on the ground are relatively small to the other project types that we have. So although it is a significant piece of work, it's not as there's not as many projects as there are for the other project types, for example. But what we need is a holistic way of moving forward, and digitalization, as I was underlining before, is really key to all of this working.
Perfect. Makes sense. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. So Kishore, now we know that a significant portion of GCC's projects, registered and submitted projects, are energy-related, renewable energy. And also you have a methodology for capture, transport, and geological storage of carbon, right? So what is your vision on the environmental and integrity of these sectors, and how you're applying to each one of them? How you differ and how you ensure integrity for both those two sectors?
Yes, so renewable energy is something I would say one of the oldest project in the carbon markets, and it captures, well, I come from CDM, so I would say 60% of the project within CDM were renewable energy. In Vera Gold Standard also there are many projects in the renewable energy, but then we need renewable energy. This is what is important for a net mitigation, net zero world. And this is almost 85% of the countries are depending on renewable energy in their NDCs. So this is one of the most important climate opportunity to tackle this net zero challenge. And therefore we absolutely encourage renewable energy project within the GCC. We have used CDM methodology, the combined margin approach, which has been proven over the time, which is one of the most integral approaches. We might move forward in the future, and this is what is our consideration, is that we might allow only ex post kind of an emission reduction rather than ex ante, which would be one way of doing things. This 25 and 75 weightage is also a part of the environmental integrity into this. The robust monitoring, I would say renewable energy is one of the sector which has a very robust monitoring. We are going into now digital MRV framework. Our pilot tests have been done on 2-3 plants. We might move forward with allowing the digital verification of the project and connecting directly the IoT-based data to our dashboards. Yeah, so this is what we are going to do in renewable energy. And of course, the regulatory committee keeps on discussing from time to time what approaches can be followed in this. Another approach that we have followed is we have allowed IFI emission factors, the International Financial Institution emission factor in our methodology, which is, if you look at those emission factors, which are much lower than a normal combined margin emission factor that you see in the DNA's websites or the country authorities' websites. So that is also a part of bringing environmental integrity or conservativeness in the baseline as such. Coming back to CCS, we have recently launched our CCS methodology for public consultation. It is still undergoing. I think by 15th next month, or 10th this month, or 15th this month, the consultation will finish. The methodology is applicable to director capture, BECS, biogenic emission capture and storage, and also we are applying. The methodology will be applicable to point sources. The fossil fuel point sources to capture the emissions and store the. We believe that we must remove the molecules of CO2 from the atmosphere, whether it is coming from directly from atmosphere or from chimney. It is the same thing. We don't know which molecules we are putting in the ground. So for us, it is very important to give those plants at least which are going to stay for some time to put their emissions in the ground. And there are several environmental integrity provisions that we have provided in this while applying the CCS methodology to point sources, which includes, for example, the power plants. We don't allow it to the greenfield power plants at all. The existing only coal-fired plant can apply it. If the country has already taken a call that in the future they will not allow the coal-fired plant to exist, they will ban the coal, then only for existing one there is a solution to put their emissions into the ground. We only allow it until the end of technical lifetime. There's a whole annexure to the methodology which talks about the best practices of identifying geological location, the liability, permanence, and so many things are in this methodology to take care of the integrity of what we are doing. Yeah? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely much more challenging on carbon capture and storage than it is for renewable energy projects. Yeah, thank you so much. So now, Maris, maybe as a follow-on on that, right? So we know that both carbon dioxide removal, CDR and CCS, is very important aspects of achieving net zero. So very, very critical aspects of our journey to achieving neutrality. So how can integrity can effectively be instilled or guaranteed for such type of projects where the stable and the long enduring removals need to be guaranteed? What is your take and ACR's take on that in complement what we heard already from Kishore?
This is a dangerous question because I'm a geologist.
It's okay.
And if you want to talk about the subsurface and what's going on there, call me later. But it is really key, and it is really key to the piece of the permanence question. And again, I'm on the tech-based side, and one of our superpowers on the tech-based side, and the way that we ensure integrity is the measurability of what we do. And I do get the question. I was like, are you sure that you're sequestering CO2? Pretty sure. There's a meter. It's spinning. We calibrated it last week. We know what's going into the subsurface. But ultimately, what we're trying to get at is not just CO2 molecules in the subsurface, but it's a net benefit to the atmosphere. And so that comes with where do you draw your boundaries for your project? How do you look for synergies between different projects so that you're, looking at infrastructure build out and multiple projects coming into the same thing. So with our CCS methodology 2.0, we have an active and existing methodology. We're updating it to 2.0 really to provide some clarification around that net benefit piece to the atmosphere, because particularly for these projects, these industrial projects, they do suck up a lot of energy, and being really intentional and deliberate about that accounting is what we've focused on for this methodology. And the question of power purchase agreements or dedicated solar facilities or the different ways that you can power these is something that we really had to get into. And we went through our public comment process. And I was blessed with over 200 comments, and good ones and hard ones. And it took a really long time to go through all of those, because that's the ground truthing. Because I do love CCS, but I'm not doing this for fun. I'm not volunteering here. We really want to make this a methodology that people can use, and that when someone is buying those credits, that they really understand where that net benefit is coming from and where we're drawing the boundary. Is it around the facility? How far back in that process are we going to really talk about what that benefit is to the atmosphere? And I do want to point out just an important piece, and this is something more specific to the industrial side, is that for CCS and our other methodologies, something that I sort of look forward to is the retirement of these methodologies and the day that they're not additional anymore. And for CCS, that's going to be, it's not always going to be additional for certain value streams within and certain products within the CCS space. They're not always going to be additional. And we have opportunity with the low-hanging fruit right now, where maybe you do, at your point source, have a pure stream of CO2. That's easy. Let's do that. I'm short. I'm a fan of low-hanging fruit. Let's do it. But along the line, we're going to start seeing, okay, well, maybe we're at 20% CO2. That's more complicated. That's more energy. That's more machines and more infrastructure that we have to build. Okay, 10% CO2 and lower, and then when you get down to atmospheric. From a physics perspective, it's really hard to get that out of there. And maybe we can leverage chlorophyll, and we can do it through bioenergy, bikers or BECs, but ultimately, that is something that we're looking really hard at, is slicing and dicing CCS and the different components of that methodology and that industry, and how we can get the early movers to sort of show proof of concept, to help support infrastructure build out. And then we can get to the harder stuff, the harder to decarbonize stuff. So I really do look forward to saying that these things aren't additional. I don't say we raise our methodologies to retire them, but we recently just retired, not a CCS component, but another methodology that was around used transformer oil. And ultimately, the methodology was written because it used to be a hazardous waste. There used to be PCBs in this transformer oil, and so the only thing that you could do with it, you couldn't really recycle it unless you did a lot of treatment, and that was something that was enabled by the carbon markets. That's not the case anymore. And the PCBs are not in use in the areas where the methodology was active. So that was actually a really good feeling in a difficult conversation with our project developers. But ultimately, we couldn't stand behind those credits. And that's the question that I ask, that I talk to my staff about, and that we need to be able to answer in the positive is, would you buy this credit? Is this a credit that if you were offsetting your family vacation, or if you were offsetting your footprint for living in the country that you live in, or the miles that you drive, would you buy this type of credit? And if I can't say yes to that, then back to the drawing board. And we have a good foundation with a lot of our methodologies, but through this examination that we've done with all of the increased transparency requirements within the industry, we found that we're doing a pretty good job, but that we need to be even more intentional about it and even more transparent, and really dig into not just where our stuff is coming from, but what we've based it on. So that's going to be for CCS and all the different aspects of CCS and all the different industries that it can touch, because that is the superpower of CCS, is that it's so broadly applicable across so many industries and different movers. First, second, third, I'm excited for the 17th movers, but that is what we ultimately want to be able to say, is that I would buy this credit, and this credit is good enough for me.
No, that's great. Well, I appreciate the efforts that all of you guys are doing in considering the importance of removals and carbon capture storage. I think it's critical. Something that I loved, just hearing you say it, is about defining criterias for when this become non-additional, right? Because I think we've done mistakes in the past. I really question our decision about the renewable energy not being additional. It's in a world where we have over 80% of our energy matrix is still fossil-based, right? So all of those things are very important to define clear criteria why we're implying them. So very, very important. I appreciate it. Alex?
Can I add one thing to that?
Sure,
It's
yeah.
really, really super fast, I promise. And additionality, particularly for something, I'm not going to pick on renewals, but it varies so much. And I want to just say one of the things that we're really looking at too is the regionality of it, because a lot of projects that we're seeing in the U.S. are these ethanol type projects, and so if we want to slice and dice an ethanol in Iowa going to this one facility, that might be additional for not as long as another project, but maybe ethanol in a different country really is. And so I said it in my opening remarks, but it's really not just the standard, not just the methodology, but it's really the project and the projects over time. Thanks, sorry.
I mean, since
Just,
you raised the
we're
point
pretty-
of
pretty
additionality.
short in time,
Yeah,
so,
just
pretty brief.
it's about additionality. So we have clarified this point that we do not take a blanket approach. We want to go by project additionality and so on and so forth. We did recently analysis for 2 Indian states, Gujarat and Rajasthan, and we found that actually the cost has gone down by almost 5 times. The tariffs have gone down by 8 times, So the internal rate of returns which were there in 2008, now the internal rate of return are lower than that. So it's about checking project by project, understanding the project-based situation. That is more important, and therefore I would, I wanted to add here.
Thank you.
So the cat's in the pigeons now. Everyone wants to talk about it, but I'll keep it really brief. So, what you see is different approaches from different programs. So what Vera did several years ago is we've actually said it's too difficult to stand by an additionality decision for the majority of developing countries. So we're still allowing new renewable projects in LDC countries, but only in LDC countries. And that is a difficult decision. It's a very hard decision to take. And honestly, we still sometimes go back over it and think, well, was that the right thing to do? Because we know that there are some good projects which are then disallowed. But I think it is the role of a standard to constantly push the boundaries and move into a direction of getting more and more integrity. So it's a difficult decision, but it's one we still...
It is, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so Alex, you mentioned that Ser Carbono just got accredited by ACROA and conditional accreditation or certification by Corsia. So if you could tell us what had to be done in order to get these accreditations and how it impacts the integrity of Ser Carbono credits and the standard as a whole.
Yeah, thank you, Alfredo. So we started a process of enhancing the whole standard. That takes you to enhance the whole structure in terms of, for example, governance. And we did a really improvement on the governance of the standard with a board of members of the board, and a new CEO on the standard as well. So all this standard with a new conflict on interest policy on the standard that we have to address in order to comply with these all requirements. Also, we need to do a lot of improvements on the project development process. So we started to also, we did it before, but we enhanced the public consultation of the process, the post-certification changes, and the process of post-certification changes. We did a credit serial number, enhanced credit serial number for the certificates in order to put new variables into the serials. Also, we address some baselines considerations, and also processes, enhance the processes for post-certification changes and findings. Also, we had to improve and to work onto the possible double counting events and how we manage those possible double counting events, and has a really clear procedure on how we deal with this process that may happen in the process and may happen in the certification cycle. And also we're working, and I think was really important since we put in place a SDG tool into our standard in order to identify, and we make it this SDG tool obligatory because it was not mandatory, it was optional for the projects, but in our new protocol, we put it obligatory, we put it mandatory, so every project must identify with which SDG tools the projects are complying with. And this process is being also verified by the OBBs. So it's not like an auto declaration, it's also being verified by the SDGs. We also reinforce our safeguarding principle documents with not the harm principle and extended development in that sense. We are, and that was like a commitment into this IPROA endorsement and also CORSIA in order to improve also our methodologies. So right now we are in a third-party review of our methodology, mostly our renewable energy methodologies and also our RED Plus methodology as well. And into the renewable methodology, we are making some adjustments on the scope of participation for the international markets. We are incorporating more stricter eligible criteria for with a specific aspects for certain type of technologies. We are incorporating the possibility of incorporating emerging renewable energy technologies, demonstrating benefit through high quality scientific studies, integrating into a single document of renewable energy connected to grids and isolated systems, and we are also including energy storage system with batteries. And for the RED Plus projects, we are also in that process. I also want to point out that a really important thing regarding integrity and quality has to be with transparency. So how benefits of these projects are being translated and are going to the communities that has been involved in the and are part of these kind of processes. So transparency is key for Sir Carbono, and that's why we are developing a new tool, the transparency, like the transparency disclosure tool, financial disclosure tool, in which project developers has to disclose how the benefits that are coming from selling the credits are going to the projects that involve communities. So in that sense, this tool will be optional to use. Firstly, we are going to track how the project developers receive the tool, and then we are going to consider how this tool is going to be mandatory. And that will help us to really comply with all the core carbon principles and going towards ICBCM as well. Because in the plans of Sir Carbono is also to comply and collaborate and apply to ICBCM principles and the whole certification for ICBCM. So I must agree that this is also a continuous improvement of our standards. This doesn't stop in any point. And one of the things that we are seeing is that we need to build capacity in order to, build capacity in many stages of the processes, in OVVs, in project developers, even on the clients, to build capacity also with university in order to get, the human resources able to work and able to participate in this whole certification cycle.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Well, I was going to make some considerations, but for the benefit of time and to give the audience opportunity to ask a few questions, I'll pass it to the floor. If anyone has any questions for the panelists, please. Yeah, please, the microphone.
Thank you. Arif from Indonesia. So yeah, I'm glad that you, the panelists, bring up about the technology, the role of it in terms of helping the integrity of the voluntary carbon markets. You also mentioned about the measurability as well as the the transparency and permanence. But to me, as a project proponent, it's simple, right? When I register to you and then I prepare everything, and then if some criticism coming, I want someone in your sphere to be able to be at the forefront of the issue, right? Meaning that you will be able to answer that very quickly in confidence and based on the facts, etc., rather than being a back foot of the problem. So I guess you may or may not agree with me, but I guess my question is that if you agree with me, how would you do that? And if you don't agree with me, then why? Thank you.
Do you, Alex? Yeah, good.
I just want to point out on something. When you see our name is Cercarbono, when you see in Spanish, you see the word cerca, which means closer. So we one of our philosophy is to work closer with our parties, not only project developers, but also with BBBs. So we have that on our philosophy, and we are agree with that. Like we try to deal with the things the project developer has and try to bring solutions jointly with the project developers in order to make the process smoothly.
Very good. Thank you, Alex. Sure.
I think the criticism, it depends what kind of criticism is this, because if it is about, let's say, some human right violation at the project site which has not been identified, the verifier or something, it's a very different scrutiny and other things. But when it is about, let's say, baseline or additionality and other aspects, basically the validators and verifier, they are on the ground, they are checking the things, they are submitting the reports to, and then based on the objective evidence, we as a program, we take a decision. Our steering committee, for example, it takes a decision. So depending upon what kind, we are open. If some, let's say, some NGO wants to see the basis of making a decision, we would be able to show them what is the basis. This is the validation report. This is how we did the due diligence. How the summary report was submitted to steering committee. Why steering committee agrees to approve the project or issuances. So there are technical strong footings for any decision which are made. But criticisms out there are not very strongly founded in most of the cases, and therefore whether to indulge into all those criticism by a standard body is an issue, no? Because if there are 10 different voices coming on a very superficial kind of things which have been said, I would not indulge into those all small things, because what can I say? It is their opinion about something, But if there is some technical, strong, concrete point is there, we are ready to open our dialogue and we can show them our documents as well of decision.
So, Andrew, you want to add something?
Yeah, and just briefly on this as well. I mean, I tend to agree with a lot of what Kishore has said. I think there are certainly going to be times where you need to reach out to the crediting program, and that is sometimes quite a challenge because one of the approaches that we've had, for example, is that the people who are reviewing the documents and already fully engaged in that are also the ones that are dealing with stakeholder issues like these. So we've been trying for some time to separate that out. What we're actually doing is introducing a completely new team as of January next year, just to deal with these kind of stakeholder queries in order to be able to give some of the review people a bit more separation, but at the same time give a much more dedicated response to stakeholders when they're calling.
So avoid conflict of interest, but still provide the the service. That's good. Yeah, so really quickly, because I want to see if we can get one more question from the floor, and then we got to finish. Yes.
So I would say it's a partnership, and it's really important that if we're going to be in the weeds of the projects, and we are, I get calls like, here's this 80-page document that describes our project. Please issue credits next week, and that's not going to work. And so we need to have an understanding of the lift that it is on both sides of this, and certainly we're setting say minimum, but we're setting the standard, and we need to make sure that we're really working in partnership, engaging early and often on these things, so that we can together as a united front. Because I do agree with you, we need to be able to stand by our credits.
Okay, thank you. So one final question. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Vladi. I'm a head of Recycling Association of waste recycling companies. My question is, we're quite often speaking about the renewable energy, about hydrogen, etc. What about recycling, waste recycling? Do you have new methodologies there? Do you have new projects there? Please share this information. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not in the carbon side, but Sir Carbono just developed a methodology, a whole program for a circular economy. So this new circular economy program wants to tackle all those projects that not makes too much carbon savings or mitigations, because that's kind of the problem of recycling. When you do recycling and you do the whole certification cycle, you identify that the carbon savings are so low that that the money that you have to put into the whole certification cycle doesn't match the benefits. So that's why we turn out with this new circular economy program, in which we are starting with a methodology of plastic credits. We are focusing on recycling and reusing of plastics, and with the considerations of the whole credits criteria that the carbon market has, for example, with additionality concept. So if in your country there is a ER, like extended responsibility policy, you have to be on top of that amount of recycling in order to be additional. So all those considerations are also included in this kind of program, but we can talk further. Okay.
Anyone else? Because then we're going to have to finish. Yes, please, be sure. Yes.
So I know Vera already has a plastic registry. In fact, we in 3-4 months back, we have made an announcement around this plastic registry. And I see, and I completely agree with Alex, because plastic component in the carbon component in the plastic is small, but most important is the plastic credit itself, which will really bring a lot of revenue for the recyclers that can. So this is absolutely, and then on top of it, there's metal recycling methodology, aluminium, and so many methodologies are there. In CDM, there are many methodologies which can actually get you the carbon credits as such. So, thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. Unfortunately, time is up. I wanted to thank all of the panelists for the enlightening discussion, and thank you all for participating. See you.